My name is Anna Ritz. I am in the biology department. I have been here, this is my 6th year, I believe. I am a computational biologist, so I analyze big data sets.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. It's afternoon here, so good afternoon. My name is Derek Applewhite, and I am a cell biologist. I have been at Reed since 2014, so I think that means 7 years.
So as you can see, I like networks and I like colorful networks and pretty networks. But really what I do is I model molecular systems biology as a big network. I mean, think like a social network like Facebook, except instead of the people, you have proteins, and instead of friends, you have protein-protein interactions. So I try to kind of find patterns in these big kind of hairballs of networks that kind of characterize certain cellular responses. And I also kind of work with Derek and a lot of other people in the department to use these types of graph algorithms to find potential proteins that may regulate the processes they care about. And so we kind of have a lot of really great collaborations to kind of have colleagues kind of follow up and students follow up with experiments.
I study all things cellular, but I have to say my real expertise is in a network of proteins called the cytoskeleton. And so I study how the cytoskeleton is regulated. So here I have some like non-muscle, I have some regular S2 cells, either cells we use in the lab. I also have a neuron here. I also have an egg chamber from a Drosophila. So I think I should add that the types of cells I use are Drosophila cells. So I study a lot of different aspects of cell biology using Drosophila tissue culture cells and primary cells like this neuron that's here as well. So what Anna and I were going to do is kind of have a very casual conversation about what it is to be a bio major at Reed. This is most of us. I'm a really happy, smiley group of people back when we can meet in person, which seems so long ago. We actually have a couple flavors of biology. And we'll talk about what the flavors of biology means, but this is kind of the point of this slide. We have a biology major, which you're just a straight up biology major, not just, but you are a biology major. And then we have a biochemistry molecular biology, which is kind of a chemistry biology interdisciplinary program that's kind of set. We have an environmental studies program, which is involved in a cluster of, there's also ES biology, ES chemistry, ES political science, ES history, and ES economics. And so those 5 subgroups come together to make up an ES studies program, and bio is just one sort of piece of that program. We have a neuroscience major, which is a marriage of both biology and psychology, and that's relatively new. And this is probably a little bit better sort of depiction of what I just told you, and it kind of shows you kind of how they all work. All of them sort of hover around biology being the main heart of these programs. A lot of people actually do ad hoc bio majors. So basically your concentration is biology, but you take 6 courses in some other unrelated field. So you can be a bio and art. You could be a bio, and anthropology is very popular. So a lot of people who want to be in bioanthro major. So basically your major core is biology, but you supplement your biology with some other courses. I think it's up to 6 in some other field.
Is environmental studies similar or related to environmental engineering in any way?
That is a great question, and the answer is no. Environmental studies is purely a sort of the study of the environment from these aspects, right? Again, those aspects being chemistry, biology, history, economics, and political science. So it is not an engineering program. If you're a biology major, we ask you to take one class from these 4 sort of clusters of classes. So those clusters being a genetics cluster, there is a plants cluster, plant/ecology cluster. There is a cell biology, developmental biology cluster, and then there is a behavioral animal cluster. And so all of the classes that we offer for the major sort of fit into one of those 4 broad categories. So if you're a biology major, we ask that you take one class from each of those clusters. Even if you're a BMB major or neuroscience major, we sort of tailor the clusters that we want to take for that major. For instance, if you're a BMB or biochemistry, molecular biology major, you may not take classes from the ecology plant side so much, but you might take classes from the cell biology and the genetics cluster. These clusters are probably 3 to 5 courses that kind of generally fit under that umbrella that I just told you about. So for instance, the class that I teach intro bio, which all bio majors, regardless of whether you're ES, neuroscience, you do the ad hoc route, or your biochemistry, you have to take intro bio. And then once you take an intro bio, we have a whole range of 300 level classes that you can take. Also on the same intro bio sort of first step is Anna's intro to computational biology. So you could take intro bio and or intro computational biology. And then once you've taken those intro classes, then you have this whole range of 300 level classes that are open to you. And so those 4 clusters I told you about are just sort of groupings of those classes. And you would take, and they're not minors. You could take all the classes in one particular cluster, but you still would be a bio major. There's no bio minor. But as a bio major, we ask you to take one from each, and then you have a couple extra classes that you can take on top of those if you'd like. But I've had students in the past that have taken almost every single bio class that Reed offers. So it's possible for you to fit that in your schedule from day one. We also really try to not sort of divide up biology so much, because a lot of what we do is very integrative. And so even though my class happens to be in the sort of cell biology, development biology cluster, there's a lot of overlap with what I do, with what Anna does, for instance, and she's in the genetics E cluster. These are just sort of arbitrary groupings, so we make sure that as a student at Reed, you kind of get the whole breadth of biology, but they're certainly not exclusive, and they certainly can be integrated in ways that you get to decide.
Is intro bio at Reed a weed out class? How big are the classes, and do you have TAs?
The class is designed and is sort of established so that anyone can take the class, and you shouldn't have to have prior knowledge to take bio. Being a liberal arts school, we want our students, all students, to have a very well-rounded education. So a lot of non-majors take it because we have a science requirement. The small minority of the classes is going to be actual majors. So we have 2 purposes here to sort of prepare our majors to go on to be able to take the 300 level classes and have some foundation for the next step. And also just to prepare scientifically literate citizens. So that's kind of how we approach that course. We do not have TAs. There are very few TAs on campus, if at all. There might be some student helpers, but there are no TAs. So the classes are instructed. The lecture portion is instructed by faculty. I teach a 6-week course. Of the 13 weeks of the class, I was responsible for 6 weeks of that material. We do have 2 lab associates. So intro bio has a lab that goes along with it. And so the lab associates are PhD holding people, but their job there is to help facilitate the lab learning.
I want to just mention, in addition to faculty and the like research assistants kind of in the labs, there's a ton of other support. So we have a really big student peer tutoring system, and there are lots of like drop-in office hours especially for the intro level courses. I think actually like throughout our entire like math and natural sciences division.
Intro bio is probably one of the larger classes on campus. So we break the class into halves. So half take bio 101, the other take bio 102. They're interchangeable. And then the next semester you sort of switch. So that just makes the class experience a little bit smaller. But that means we have between 60 and 80 people per sort of half of the class. So it does seem like a really big class, because it is. But the other aspect of it is that you start to know the lab people really well. And you sort of have a little lab pod of up to 24 students. So that makes it a little bit smaller.
How does Reed's grading system work in a biology setting? And how do you kind of see students getting used to that in intro?
What we try to do is de-emphasize the importance of grades and really emphasize the importance of learning. So things are graded. There is a record of a grade. but we try not to sort of de-emphasize the importance of said grade. We sort of, everything is done by comments and by feedback in that manner. So I think the faculty are really conscientious about making sure that students get guidance through feedback, so they can improve and actually learn the material rather than writing a number or a letter score on a grade.
I mean, there are multiple points in the semester where actually as faculty, we actually end up grading a lot because we want to make sure that there's multiple points for official feedback. So at 4 weeks into the semester, you could get comments. At 8 weeks in, you could get comments. So you kind of have some sense of how it's going. So it's not like you have no idea how it's going until the end. There are kind of definite mechanisms of feedback, both informal and kind of at the college, like everyone gets kind of these marks.
A couple students asking about how it works to get involved in research, especially, and whether or not that's available to underclassmen or whether it's something that's more for upperclassmen.
Yes, you can get involved in research. I've had students as early in their career as their second semester of their first year doing volunteer work in the lab. And so it is possible for students to get involved. I think what it is really up to you and to seek out the faculty member and have a conversation, which we're all pretty much open to having a conversation and talking about what it would look like for you to get involved in research. So it just depends on the individual faculty, but yes, there absolutely is opportunity for and I don't like to say the word underclassmen, there are opportunity for first year students to get involved.
Yeah, and I would just add, after the big first year topics course, those 300 level courses that Derek mentioned actually kind of means that the courses are going to be much smaller. And also most of them have these like multi-week independent projects kind of near the end. And in a way, that's a great way for you to kind of see if you like working with a professor who's teaching your class and like get a chance to like do something new. And very often like that can kind of roll into a summer project or summer research. So there are, even if, in your first year, there are so many other things that you weren't able to like get in touch with people, there are ways to have research done. And then not to mention your senior year, there will be a thesis. So if you really like fungi, you could do a thesis on fungi and one of us will mentor you. So you have also that like already built in to the program. This was kind of the last in-person summer science poster session we had, where we had, many dozen posters that kind of showed the breadth of all the summer research that was going on in the department. And we kind of have this really nice research environment, it's like attuned to students, because we don't have a graduate program, so undergraduates are kind of who we employ and who we train in our research.
All the faculty incorporate their own research in some aspect in the classes that they teach, and the classes that they teach kind of inform some aspects of their research. So they kind of are really teaching as research is teaching. They seem to go together, and that might be a weird thing for us to like emphasize, but that's really kind of the ethos that we have here, is that what we do in our like research labs does spill over into our teaching labs and vice versa.
If students don't want to go into the sort of academia route, what direction do they tend to go? What do you do with an ES bio degree or other kinds of bio degrees?
I think in the last 2 years, we've had 2 or 3 years, we've had students go to work at tech companies in Portland. There's 2 of my former students are at Suvoda, I think, which basically manages clinical trials. So it's a company that helps manage clinical trials. Another student who just graduated last year is now working as a lab tech at the Volum Institute at OHSU. So that's an example of being at an academic environment, but not being a grad student, instead being paid to help the PI carry out the work. And there's a lot of students who end up doing that, essentially go and get kind of lab tech jobs at other institutions. And it's perfect if you think you maybe want to go to grad school, but you don't know yet, and that's totally fine.
I have a student that went to law school.
Mm-hmm.
So they were a bio major, but went on to law school because they had an interest in public health and law and how those two intersect. What a bio major does is, of course, it gives you a breadth and depth of biology, but with that information, you can do whatever you'd like with it. you can use those skills, which are transferable to any other field. Learning how to think critically, how to assess data, right? Looking at a graph and understanding what that graph means. These are skills that are applicable to any number of different fields. So biology is just a conduit to which you can get excited about learning, right? And that's great. You can take these skills and transfer them to essentially any field that you really desire afterward.